Hello everybody, and thank you for tuning into today's episode of Armchair Gaming. I am your host, the Unbearable Gamer, and today we are taking our first look at NPC characters and how they might emulate life, and what happens when you turn your console off. So today we're going to kick things off with some Final Fantasy XIV, which is Square Enix's, I guess, most recent massively multiplayer online Final Fantasy game. It's not the latest installment in the Final Fantasy franchise, but it's the online one, so it's the one we're going to play with. We're going to be cutting stuff out of this episode, because we want to interact with a variety of different NPC characters, but we also want to interact with different characters. So the free company I'm a part of is, I suppose I should qualify, for those of you who aren't familiar with maybe MMOs, the free company is, it's a group of people who play together with a vested social interest in each other. So they're people you play with, you talk with, you hang out with. You can see we've got a company board here. We have meetings and stuff that needs to be updated though for sure. Today's episode, we're going to be dealing more with non-player characters. So we'll go to New Britannia, and we're going to dive in. I'm going to do some dungeon-related crawling and stuff as well, because there's a variety of NPCs to deal with. And I wanted to start with MMOs as we deal with the sentient/human status of non-player characters in video games, because MMOs offer a persistent universe. Obviously, you can't see it, but I'm air quoting. Insofar as non-player characters in an MMORPG, just because I log out of the game, it doesn't mean that they stop existing or suddenly are turned off, right? Because there are so many other players on at the same time, NPCs' functions don't cease when I cease to be interacting with the game, and that's what we're going to be talking about in later episodes. And there's actually a really cool game that we'll be looking at in the last of this series that deals specifically with NPC characters and their status as sentient or as people. So this is New Britannia. It's one of the 3 major cities in the original release of this game. That's my character there. He's a pink cat because I'm weird and like cats, and I enjoy the color pink. But as you can see, NPCs are everywhere. We go in here, there's some player characters, but there's a whole bunch of weird guys in strange yellow garb. There's this guy, the Hunt Bill. I have no idea what this dude does. But each of these have a very, all 4 of these people right here have a very specific and distinct role, and that's to engage with players in a specific set. So, obviously we're playing a game, so these guys, at the end of the day, they boil down to an algorithm, right? I interact with them, there's a process of controls and options, and they have set standardized speech. And these guys give me sub-menus. If I were to visit a merchant, they'll offer me their wares for sale. And in an MMORPG, as well as most games that have that kind of mechanic, the NPC players are designed to be eerily close to lifelike, but incredibly mundane and repetitive. But despite the repetition, there's something human about them because they're designed to be that way, right? So it's an interesting thought experiment to address how it is that NPCs exist in the game relative to you, because even your character is an analog for what you're doing. In an MMORPG, for instance, because you're telling a non-linear story with hundreds of thousands of variables and different paths to take, there is this inconsistency. Like, when somebody spontaneously logs out of the world, right, they just vanish and disappear. But what is it that happens to those characters? Do they slide away into obscurity? Do they go to sleep? Do they suffer a fate worse than when you log out of the game, your character, its place still exists, or it holds a place marker, but the place marker disappears momentarily, right? There's a moment where your character ceases to be, and nobody can interact with them anymore. It's almost as if they've gone to sleep. And in an MMORPG, that might be the most relevant explanation. And I was going to interact with more people, and I just keep jumping around everybody. that's the bottom line, is when your character logs out, all of a sudden you as your character, or I guess, sorry, when you log out, your character ceases to exist in the game, even if it's temporarily. So I'm gonna talk to my retainer, and retainers are interesting in this game because they're essentially they're kind of like a squire almost or like, yeah, I'm gonna go with squire. There's somebody that you can hire to do jobs for you and hold on to items, and you can use them to sell stuff on the global trading market, which would be a fun episode to talk about, although I'm sure an economist could do better than I could about dealing with, you know, the real player market board, because you can buy and sell objects on here. It's really cool. Oh, that sounds like fun. Oh, it's not very useful to me though. But yeah, that is this is a safe NPC world where all the NPCs are friendly. They don't intend to fight you or attack you. And we're gonna cut ahead to an instance where I'm gonna interact with I think it's 7 other players. And we're gonna be fighting an NPC who is violent and aggressive, and what their role is, and how they're an analog for sentience in life. So it's probably gonna be a pretty quick load for me, so I'm not too worried about cutting too much. But when we come back, we'll be looking at a fight, and we'll talk about this as we go through the fight, and it'll be fun. Yeah, so I'm gonna set things up and mull over my options and figure out what I'm doing with my life as I forget exactly what it is that I'm doing. There we go. Alrighty, and we are back. There we go. Oh, this seems miserable. So yeah, we are back, and we are straight into it. So we are fighting Ritz guy. I can't pronounce this guy's name. But so we're engaged in this battle with this NPC. As you can see, there are 8 of us total. You can see that in the bottom left-hand corner that there are 8 of us individually, and we're all horrifyingly aggressively wailing on this guy. It's pretty brutal. Pull that guy in. Are we able to? So we're fighting this guy, and he's bringing in other enemies for us to be fighting. Oh, there we go. Okay, no longer have to worry. Perfect. And the NPCs, when you're fighting, so in a game like this, where the primary objective is fighting, this fight's over already, isn't it? This is. Oh dear. We're gonna do another one of these because that was horrendously. That was just so. I was hoping that'd be a few minutes at least. So we'll do another one. There's in the bottom left-hand corner, you saw the people I was playing with. In the top right-hand corner, there's a bit of chat. They're letting me a whole bunch of stuff. The NPC character, I will suffer no one. So there's this small dialogue. Some of the players I was playing with decided they wanted to chat up. And then, so we get into this fight with this NPC, and his life cycle, very literally, is the algorithm gets turned on, he comes into existence, and then his primary objective is to best the players who, if they have good teamwork and are geared properly, and they have good equipment, will walk up and just smack him around like... Well, they just smack him around, and that's exactly what happened. I really thought it was going to take a little bit longer, which is a bummer, but that's okay. I'm going to set up another one. We can probably get... I'm hoping we get like a nice, big, long one. There we go. So I'll see you guys on the next one. We can continue this conversation, hopefully. Oh, perfect. We're back. This is exciting. This fight will take a little bit longer, so maybe I'll actually get to, you know, speak and talk about NPCs. So, I should say, what's taking place here. Nice. Yeah. Oh boy. Alright, let's dive into this fight. So essentially what is happening here is as I was saying, in between fights there, because that fight took all of like a minute. Oh shit, I'm on back. Pardon my language. Sorry. I'm gonna set up. I'm gonna stop muttering because this is a fairly easy, straightforward fight, but it'll last a smidge longer. Right. And as you can see, very bright. I have no idea what's happening. I'm just going to be wailing on stuff. This is very artistic, as I'm sure you guys have also noticed. Oh, uh-oh. Run away! Yeah. So, as I was saying, different NPCs have different roles. Obviously, when we were in town, we interacted with friendly NPCs whose primary focus is to benefit players, right? When we interact with them, they offer rewards, etc., etc., or they offer goods and wares in exchange for in-game currency, and they're designed to kind of emulate a real-life world that people understand and kind of they know what you're dealing with. Oh, I got hit by something. Okay, we're not. Nice. King Thordan, who we're fighting right now, he's about to get wonky, I think. Oh no, he's about to just die. Never mind. King Thordan, as well as any other violent NPC, they're yes. Okay, so things are about to get real janky. I don't remember any of this fight. So I'm just gonna panic. That's what's about to happen here with that. Oh boy. Terrible idea. So yes, less focus on what's happening, more focus on you guys, because this is not a hard fight. Oh, what? Okay, nice. There we go. As I was saying, this fight is, sorry, that was my controller, which Brett turned the sound off on. This fight, ooh, that seems like death. This fight in particular, this is a boss fight, obviously, as you can tell by the, like, over-the-top, insane graphics and all, like, the fact that we're suddenly teleporting and transporting, but violent NPCs, their purpose in this game is, I should say in this game specifically, their objective, their algorithm, however you want to look at it, their attempt at humanization is purely around how best can we emulate circumstances and difficulties so that players feel like they have something that they need to fight against, right? Like that's their modus operandi. And in that was a bad idea. Sorry. Oh, I did that did no damage to anybody. That was beautiful. I like it. Should we fight you now? I want to fight you. But oh, that sounds like unfun. Holy, who's got the meat here? Nobody good. Gotta smash stuff. Gotta break stuff. Yes, I'm trying to focus on you guys and this fight at the same time. And I can do better. Boom. Break it. Boy. There we go. Alright. Awesome. Nice. Good job. So as I was saying, oh, no, don't end my vain struggle. That's not a fun, that doesn't sound nice. I'm gonna hang out here. Yeah, cool. So, NPCs are, maybe the easiest way to describe it. NPCs, when they're violent, their humanity exists purely out of their ability to create a struggle for players, right? Okay, well, this fight's over. This one took a couple minutes longer, which is good, since we'll be able to. We're gonna finish this fight, and then we'll go back to talking about the different varieties of NPCs, at least in an MMORPG setting. Perfect. There we go. Fight's over. Easy. And now I can go back to actually, like, not speaking gibberish. Because I struggled a little bit there, admittedly. I like to think I'm usually pretty good at interacting with the microphone and talking as I'm fighting stuff. That one got maybe a little bit challenging. And not because it was hard, but because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. So, in an MMORPG, there appears to be several types of NPC characters. There are the, like, nonchalant, pseudo-useless ones. I say pseudo-useless. I truly just mean the ones who are non-critical to the story, right? And we interacted with those guys here. My retainers are non-critical. I don't need them. This battle... Garant, the Battlecraft supplier. I'm sure he's gonna bow at me, but if I never talk to him, the story will still progress. These guys, as they pout... Why are you pouting? What is this? What is this? What are you doing? They're not important. Like, nobody in here, with the exception of the players, is important. That was really fast camera movement, and I'm sorry. That was maybe, like, a little extra. So we've also met 2 important NPC characters who are pivotal to the plot, but are aggressive, I suppose is the better word. When we fought 2 bosses, we interacted with 2 human-like NPCs who you have to engage in combat with. You don't just get to be okay with their existence, right? There's like, they don't just show up and you're like, hey friend, how's it going, buddy? Oh, it's nice to see you. How are the wife and kids? You interact, and maybe not immediately, but eventually you come to a reckoning with them where you're forced to fight them. And they present, I suppose, the closest thing to like a human challenge, like an argument would be for us, although obviously when you cut at somebody with a sword for 5 minutes, you're probably not really just arguing with them. And I suppose the last characters, I'm gonna hope I can find one. I should be able to find 1 or 2. Are NPCs who are non-aggressive and are critical to plot. Oh, no, I'm going the wrong direction. I know exactly. I'm getting teleported anyways. I went to the wrong area. I should have gone to Rocker's Reach, not Gugane, because we could interact with a few NPCs. Although we might be able to find. We'll find 1 here. And obviously, like, there's more that we can unpackage with this particular game, with dealing with like different races and how everybody interacts and comes together, and they all provide different abilities and traits that make living in Eorzea possible. But we'll save that for another episode. Where today we really just wanted to focus on NPCs and MMORPGs, and there's something fascinating about them because unless the whole servers are taken down, they NPCs are forever stuck in a loop, and they have this scripted reality to them, which is it's a little tenuous and almost horrifying when you think about it, because like they live a life that they don't really have any control over, and they viciously, the non-critical ones, their life as a battle merchant or a, you know, a repair smith or whatever, is perpetually... You're letting me gonna go in? Yes, please. Thank you. Is perpetually the same thing over and over and over again. And there's like a non-human element because you on the outs... Oh, perfect! There's a bunch of important characters here. That's wonderful. The unimportant, or the non-critical NPCs, their roles are incredibly mundane, and like, you know they're not human because you're interacting with them, and they have scripted roles that presumably everybody else sees the exact same thing, but there's also this eerie, creepy, like, mirror-like nihilism that kind of crawls out from behind them as you interact with them, because for many people, we are the main characters of our own lives, like, we're the main character in this game, you know. My boy Valkaris Moonfang he's the main character in this story. He's the prime character, despite the fact that there are literally millions of other players who go through the exact same story, which is another thing to talk about in another episode. Actually, we're going to tie it up in the end of this one, actually. So right now we have Hancock, Tataru, Alphanod, and Alize, I think is how her name is pronounced. I don't really remember. So these guys, I'm just morphing into him. I'll let you back away. If we had story to go through still, as you can see the top says main scenario quest complete to be continued, so there is no main story for me anymore. These 4 characters are critical to the plot. Their existence is scripted, but if I don't interact with them, the story doesn't progress. And I suppose more to their impact as NPCs is their life is incredibly scripted and forever changing, and it's like wildfire, all the things that they go through. But while the lens is played through me, because this is a persistent world, these guys have lived the same tale, like verbatim, countless times, with the only variable changing is the person who comes in to be like their saving grace, which in this case is my character, but anybody who plays a character who does the campaign will have the exact same experience with the exact same character, or the exact same characters. So that's going to wrap up today's episode. I said this is going to be a multi-parter, and the intention for this is to do 3 distinct episodes where we deal with the existence of NPCs. And I started with this one because MMORPGs, NPC, non-player characters, are unique in the fact that when you turn your console off or you log out of the game, their lives continue without you. Your observation isn't an important factor for them to be doing their thing over and over and over again, right? It's unlike like an offline game, and the reason for that is there's always somebody observing them. So these guys truly never go to sleep or temporarily die or enter a form of stasis. And we're going to talk about the next episode and what their status as people are in the game world, if we assume that the game is in fact a world unto itself with its own set of rules that are not scripted, just algorithms. When you look at them and you turn the console off, what happens to that world? What do you do to all of those people who partake in that world? You know, when you're playing Legend of Zelda, what happens to Princess Zelda and Link, you know, and Tattle and Navi and Midna and all of those people when you're not playing the game? Do they not exist? Do they exist? What happens? Are they asleep? Are they temporarily dead? Are they in some form of non-cryogenic stasis? Like, you know, there are these questions that can be asked about them, and you can extend that majestically into the principle of like the observed world, and whether or not the observed world or the world only exists when you observe it. And I think that's really important to talk about, and video games, both online and offline, do a good job of beginning to express that, because, as I've said, I think 4 or 5 times now, in MMORPG world, all of these people exist regardless of whether or not my character is here, because there are other people observing them, right? So they must always exist, and the only time they don't is if the server is taken down for maintenance or if they're closing out server support. So that's it for today's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed and learned a little bit about the observed and unobserved life, and we'll continue this talk about NPCs in video games as people, and what happens when they're unobserved and when the console's turned off in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to check out the Scholarly Gamers website for all kinds of fun stuff, and I look forward to seeing everybody on the next video. Bye for now.